Hey, folks, I'm Sean.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Barstools
And Talk. And I will have to say, tonight I'm wearing, thank you, P-Paul, I'm wearing my Two Rock Duo shirt. Chris said the funniest, I was just reading it before we came on here. He said the real global threat is the dude that's now going to learn how to play Wonderwall on guitar. So, too real. Right. We have this guy right here. I think everybody said we got to get this guy on. This is going to be a real treat. I just hope we can shut up and listen.
That's exactly what we need to do this time, because we're talking to rock and roll royalty here. I mean, Bruce Wheaton just celebrated his 70th birthday there last year before. There's so many people he has touched in his musical career, and I can't wait for you to hear his story. He'll talk about the different bands he's in, Stitch In Tyme, Soma, Everyday People, Molly Oliver he's recorded with. And you'll hear a story that'll blow your mind. We're so pleased to welcome to our talk show, Barstools and Band Talk, the one and only Bruce Wheaton.
Howdy.
There he is.
How you doing, sir?
In living color.
In living color. Bruce, I gave you a quick little introduction, and I talked about some of the bands that you highlight for recording with, but you have a long history of playing. Has it always been your life, music?
Well, it has been since 1966. In 1966, I was in bands before that, but I was just getting out of the Air Force in Toronto.
Okay.
And my buddies from Amherst, who I used to play with, we could start on that a little later. They asked me to join this band, Stitch In Tyme. And I kept saying no, because I was always a guy that always had a job. You know, I had a grocery store job when I was 12 years old. You know, that kind of guy's real. You know, everything real made sense in my life. And I looked at music. I used to tell them, like, I kept saying no, and I said, you can't make a living playing music. So they kept asking me, and then he said, look, come on down and see us play in the Village in Toronto, Yorkville, and see what you think. So I went down there, and the place was packed, and there was 3,000 beautiful girls sitting around. And
suddenly the grocery store didn't look so good anymore.
Yeah, it's a little encouraging then, you know. So anyway, I looked at it, I heard the band was great, and I thought, well, if there's any band that I want to try, you know, for a living, this is the one, right? And so I made that decision and did it, and joined. And then I never had a real job since.
Oh, I love you.
So, and that was 1966. So, I mean, like, you know, I'm not great at math, Bruce. That's an awful long, successful career. Did you do anything else besides play, or was that it?
No, it was it. You know, I when I got older, in my 50s, I was starting to get paranoid about, geez, this is all I'm doing, you know. So my girlfriend at the time, she used to she booked part-time jobs, you know, for a day or two. So I did a few of those. That's it, you know. You know, 8 hours here and there. I never had a job. Because you know, like, that's one thing about being, if you're successful at what you're doing, even though it is a crazy business, that's what kept me in it. Like, if I would have not been making a living, you know, I had a family, you know, I later on had kids and all that. Like, I would never put my kids through the starving musician life.
Yeah.
I didn't believe in it, and I didn't have to. You know, like, everything was going good, and I made changes over the years, and I became a solo artist. You know, after the band thing, you could tell band things were looking kind of tough to keep them going with good money, you know. So I went solo, and then I was really crazy busy, traveling everywhere and making good money, you know, for a long time.
Yeah, it's really funny, Bruce. I don't know why I never clued into this. I used to hang out. Paul Lawson used to be my next door neighbor when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, yeah.
I'd go next door to his house and we go into the fridge and there'd be like a pack of hot dogs and a thing of ketchup. But I want to be a musician. I could never figure out that part of it until years later.
No. Yeah, no, I consider myself lucky, because I know a lot of friends of mine that are great musicians and stuff, and they had a hell of a time in life, like not making enough money and living in derelict houses, and it's not me. Like I was, well, I guess I learned, just to make my money pay work. I didn't waste money.
Right.
So like, I was always a sensible guy. Like I think, I see a lot of the guys that I knew that, they were good musicians, but they liked to party. I like to party a bit, but I knew when to draw the line, and drugs and the same thing. Like I did the odd thing here and there, but I was scared to death of drugs. So, I smoked a lot of weed at one time, in the 60s. And then I gradually even got away from that. Now it's legal and I don't even like it. It's funny how that goes, It should have been legal way back then,
So from Stitch In Tyme, like what kind of music were you playing back then, Bruce? Like,
well, let's go back to where it all began there.
Yeah, please.
I grew up in a musical family. Like I was given that gift, My father was a good musician himself, playing old time music on the button accordion. So my first instrument was a button accordion.
Okay.
I never had a guitar. Rock and roll hadn't happened yet. Like when I was like, I think it's 8 years old or 9, 10 maybe, Elvis came on the scene. And believe it or not, people that don't know, you can't look back on history and do a judgment call. You have to be there to experience the vibe and everything that happened. Like, truthfully, when I was going to school, I was always into singing. I sang in the choir in Baptist Church in Amherst from, as long as I could sing, like 9 or 10 years old. I was in every choir we had. I was a church going guy, I'm not a real religious guy or anything, but I was, and then I used to listen to radio all the time. It was just silly, how much is a Dorian window? Or I'll catch a falling star and put it. That's what was on the radio. Really. There was no rock and roll. There wasn't not such a thing. All of a sudden, Elvis comes out with Heartbreak Hotel. Wilson's my baby. And we went, the Messiah has come. To us kids, like, this is wow.
You changed religion.
That's why Elvis, he's the king of rock and roll, because he's the guy that showed. I mean, I loved all them guys, like Little Richard, Fats Domino, Chuck Berry, but Elvis Presley, I wanted to be Elvis Presley, man. He was the best looking guy that walked the planet, and he could sing. And his music was rocking, Jailhouse Rock and, all that stuff. And Don't Be Cruel. Man, when I hear that stuff now, I go, I can't believe how good that is and how well it was recorded.
Yes, you're right.
That long ago.
You're
and
right.
He did it live in the room, and they had mics, and the band played it. They all played it once. There was none of this 16-track or 24-track recording studio. It was
one take,
mono a lot of times, or stereo at the most. And he did a bunch of takes until he got the way he wanted, and that's what you hear on them records. Amazing when you think of that.
Yeah.
And he had, I can remember one time when he first started, and there'd be times when he had 5 songs in the top 10. Like the Beatles did later on, right?
Yes.
But Elvis and the Beatles are the only two that I can think of that hit that hard. Like Elvis he knocked all walls down. They used to say he sounded black and all that. Well, here's another thing. When I was that old, 8 years old or whatever, And before Heartbreak Hotel came out, my future brother-in-law played guitar. So I was, wow, guitar. I never had no guitar. You know, I'm but an accordion guy, right? So then he brought over 78 record of Elvis Presley. Like before he was, you know, you never see him. Well, you didn't see anybody because TV had, in our town, had one channel that was clear. The other one was so snowy you couldn't see it, you know. And then I heard this, I think it was called Milk Cow Blues Boogie. Ever hear that song by Elvis Presley?
Yes, sir.
Well, that's the first one I ever heard. I said, wow, what a weird, what's he doing? You know, I had never heard anybody sing with that kind of beat in his voice. He had so much rhythm. But then, man, when Heartbreak Hotel came out, it was like, wow. You know?
Hound Dog, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because they always talk about That's All Right, Mama. I never heard That's All Right, Mama. That was probably happening in Memphis, where he was from, and all that, or Tupelo, Mississippi, where he was born. But I never heard that song. But my first big one by him was that, and that just blew the door right out, you know. So then I'm going, wow, he plays guitar, man. And then my sisters, they went on vacation one year. I was probably 10. And they knew how big Elvis fan I was. And they brought this Elvis Presley guitar. I got that on Facebook, that little story. And it's a plastic guitar with Elvis on it, and it says, "Don't be cruel, and you ain't nothing but a hound dog on." And you could play it, but not really. It was a plastic 6-string guitar. So I got somebody to show me, because it wasn't YouTube videos or nothing, you know.
No.
So I got somebody to show me. They tuned the guitar in the key E, like open E, right? You bling, it's a chord.
Okay.
I didn't know how to play a chord or anything. So I was playing for a while that guitar Hawaiian style with a bar, and I was going, you know, rock and roll like that. And then I was 15, and my mother bought me my first acoustic guitar.
What was that?
Oh, I don't know, some old cheap old thing that she got. I don't know the name of it. All I know was a real guitar, you know. And my buddy at the time I met, he played guitar. So like, wow, he plays guitar, you know. So he showed me a couple of things of his guitar. And he's here, Bruce, I'm gonna lend you this guitar. So his name was Larry Reinders. And we would eventually start our first band together. So he showed me a couple of instrumentals, you know, by the Ventures or something.
Yeah.
And then I just started banging away at it. And I had real good rhythm because I was a dancer. Our family was very musical. We danced, we sang, you know, all the time. So I knew that you got to keep the beat, man. That's the main thing, and it still is the main thing. All the soul and stuff, yeah, that's cool. But if you don't give a good groove, you got nothing.
Right on.
And I learned how to play a groove before I learned how to do anything. 2 strings, and I can play a groove.
Now, were you influenced at all by the Motown sound?
Oh yeah, later on, sure, yeah. That'd be in late '60s, something like that. Yeah, Stitch In Tyme. We're doing. I don't know if you, the Dells, Archie Bell and the Drells. I just can't stop dancing. Remember that song?
Yeah, that's not
Yep.
fair.
The Dells and
Oh yeah.
all those bands.
I guess I'm ahead of myself. So was the Beatles the next big thing for you now? So you're 15, 16, you got a guitar, you're starting to play.
See, then we started that band.
Okay.
When this was 1962.
Okay.
I was 15 years old. Shortly after I got that guitar, I was the lead singer. I wasn't the guitar player. I learned a couple songs, and I would play those songs only. Then I put the guitar down, and I had the moves, and I was dancing on the stage, doing Elvis songs and Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and Fats Domino, singing all those songs.
Cool.
And then we were rocking, just rock and roll. Just every song was, And so then this is 1963. I turned 17. I graduated from high school. So now I got to get a job. I had to get away from my old man because else he was going to die or I'm going to die. One of those situations.
Yeah.
And so I joined the Air Force. And then I joined in November of '63, and that was the year that JFK got killed.
Yeah.
And we were, I can remember we were on parade there, and all of a sudden everything got real tight. We were in basic training, and we had this big parade, and they told us all about what happened. Like the militaries around the world were tightening up because they didn't know what was going to go. Is there going to be a Russian invasion or what happened there? So anyway, I joined in November, basic training, St. Jean, Quebec. I'm in basic training. We get our first break at Christmas time. We take the train home to Amherst, where I'm from. And with my first paycheck, I walked to the local music store and buy an electric guitar and amp. And I took it back to the base. And in 3 or 4 months, I was playing guitar and singing in a band on the bass.
Wicked.
The other thing too, the people that are watching this that don't know about the Amherst Spring Hill area, there's a ton of talent there.
Oh yeah, man! My favorite band in those days was a local band called Viscounts. Danny Thibodeau. I guess Danny was Larry Reinders was my hero because I played in our band and he showed me a few things. But Danny was probably in the best band in Amherst at the time, the Viscounts. But I was gone so young. When you think of it, 17 years old, and I'm gone. Most kids got to hang around and party or do their teenage years, but I was in the Air Force. So this band, what's called the Continentals, that I was in, we just get what was happening there. I saw a sign come up on the screen. Anyway, we had this band called the Continentals, and I went off to the Air Force and did that thing and had a couple bands. My first band was called the Vibrasonics. And then I left, that was Camp Borden. Then I got stationed in Toronto. And then I had a band called Chester and the Unknowns. And that was a nice band. Chester's a black man and he could sing like, wow, could he ever sing? So we were doing a little bit of R&B there. So that took me in because of him, right? So I get introduced to R&B. And then I told you, that band, that original band in Amherst when I'm 16, they had since got together with another band from Parisboro called the Untouchables, who had Grant Fullerton, Bob Murphy, John York. And then they joined forces, and Arc Records in Toronto brought them to Toronto and signed a record deal with them. So now, one of the guys is leaving the band. That's when they started asking me. They knew he was leaving. Will you join the band? I said, I didn't think, what? Play music or living? What?
I'm in the Air Force.
So then I ended up in Stitch In Tyme, which basically was half of the Continentals and half of the Untouchables from Parisboro. It's so great for me, really, So I joined a band that was probably one of the most popular bands in Canada. They had really made a mark there. We were one of the first long-haired bands in Toronto.
Is that right?
I can remember growing my hair right quick because they all had long hair, and I came out of the Air Force.
Yeah, exactly.
I just let it grow, right? And then I can remember walking around town. And girls used to follow me around town because I had long hair. Because nobody had long. That's how significant. That's a big deal, man. When you think about it, now everybody has long hair, or had since after that. When the Beatles came out, everybody had long hair. So, but before that, just right then, like I say, we were one of the first long-haired bands in Toronto, in Canada, probably.
So where would you play?
And then I come home. Where would we play?
Yeah.
Oh, we played. They were playing a lot in the Village. You heard of Yorkville, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was
Yorkville Village.
Toronto. So exactly it's awesome.
What?
I lived in Toronto for 7 years. That whole area is amazing.
Yeah, it's really changed now. I mean, we were there at the very best times. Like it was just small little clubs, and there was no booze in them. They were coffee shop, they call it.
Right.
And we played the El Patio and a place called the Flick. Actually, the Flick, we signed with some backers in Toronto, and they put some pretty big money behind their band, and they bought the lease on this building, and that was our club, the Flick. We operated that club, so we were a very popular band. So if we didn't get our price that we were asking, we would play in that club until we got our price. So that was very well thought of by people that were handling us. I remember when we signed with these guys, they were from a company called Patina Mining Company. So they're all multimillionaires, and one of the head guys invited us over to his house in Rosedale, I think, in Toronto. It's one of the ritzy areas, and we drove down the street, and we pulled into this oval driveway, and it looked like a castle. It really was. It was, wow, look at this.
You're a little fella from Amherst too, right?
Yeah, a little old boy from Amherst. So then we, I remember we went swimming that day, in-ground swimming pool. Wow, what's this? And a sauna, and they had the big meal there and all that. No, we were pretty lucky. We right there. We were just fools to break up and not take it further, because everybody wanted to sign us and manage us, and then the two guys that were more in control of the band, I was just a member of that band,
right?
And they were sort of at odds with each other and pulling. I want it this way, I want it that way, and then it broke up. And I couldn't believe it.
That's too bad.
We broke up after we had that song, Got to Get You Into My Life there, and then we did another one. We flew to New York City. Our manager flew us there, and we recorded another song there for our next single. Come back, and then our leader of the band, he said, we're leaving this small time guy. So we just dropped our contract and left. And then we met these guys from the mining company. We used to have meetings in these rooms in their office buildings on Bay Street. I'm sure you're familiar with Bay Street.
Yep.
It's the center of economics in Canada, probably. So, and we were going there, us long-haired hippie musicians, for our meeting, and they were discussing what the direction we're going to take. And man, it was, wow, they start paying for recording sessions, and we were starting to do some originals and all that. And then the band broke up. Ridiculous. And then the old manager came back at that time, and me and Pinky Dahlbein, and he ended up going with Lighthouse and Grant Fullerton after that band broke up. And he had a meeting with me, Bob Murphy, Pinky, and Donnie. And Grant Fullerton was gone. He was leaving. And he said, we can get somebody else. He said, I'm going to offer you a $250,000 recording contract right now. Right there. I was at that meeting going, yeah. Let's do it, man. $50,000 a year guaranteed on recording for 5 years.
In 67.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, me and Pinky, like, we all wanted to do it. And then Grant was gone. But Murph after he left, he said, we'll get back to you. Yeah, sounds good. And he walked out the door. He said, we're not doing that. He said, when we hit, we're going to be bigger than him.
Hmm.
So we walked away from that one. And that was the end of the band in a few months. In a few months' time. Then Skip Prokop started coming around our gigs at the end. You know who that is, right? He's a
Yep.
drummer for Lighthouse. He's the guy that put Lighthouse together. So he asked Grant and Pinky to join his band. And right near the end of our band, he came up to me and asked me. He said, Grant and Pinky are, he said, I want you to come to our rehearsals in next Tuesday or whatever day it was. And I said, wow, great, because I didn't know what I was going to do. Everybody else was going on to do something. I had no plans. So anyway, then on Monday, the day before the practice, he calls me up and he says, Bruce, he says, I got some bad news for you. He said we can't do that thing. I said, why? He said, because somebody in the band doesn't want you to be in the band. And I'm not going to mention the name, but that's what happened. I was really disappointed, to say the least, you know. So anyway, that ended. And then Bob Murphy and Donnie went to Nova Scotia and put together Soma. And then they were there a couple months, and I get the call from them. He said, come on, Bruce, come on down. We need you. We're going to be singing backup for Frank McKay, and we're putting this big band. I knew all about it because we had talked about it anyway. So
Right.
I had nothing going on at the time, so I went there, and we put that band together, and we did a first concert, and we did a few concerts. But I was playing congos, and I was really good at it because of my rhythmic thing, right? Playing congos and singing background vocals. But then I realized, like, this is not what I want to do. I'm a guitar player, and I want to get back into my guitar playing. So I flew back to Toronto, and put Everyday People together. That's how that band got together.
Right. And you had some great success with Everyday People too.
Oh yeah, really, yeah. That band was, I don't know, kind of like a happy band. You know, my idea. That year or two was a year and a half after the Stitch, and then after I left Soma, I was writing songs all the time. And my idea, because I was a dancer, I used to go dancing all the time, believe it or not, you know. And they were called discotheques, but the disco hadn't happened. They were just called discotheques.
Right.
They played Creedence Clearwater and stuff like that. And everybody danced, right? So yeah, so I thought, you know what? All my original songs, I want them to be able to, you could dance to them, because people are having fun when they're dancing. So all those songs on the Everyday People album, if you check them out, you can dance to them. And when we play gigs, the place, I can tell you, the first time I ever walked on stage with that band, I wrote all the songs. I wrote a couple with Pam Marsh, and but it was my concept, the band, from the beginning. And I remember we were getting together and we're getting ready to play now. Okay, we practiced. We got all these songs together, these original songs. Now we're going to play for the people. I can remember the first night playing and going scared to death, because we're not playing any hit parade songs, man. We're playing all originals.
And they loved
So
it.
how's this going to go over? I'm thinking, you know, Jesus, you know, Stitch In Tyme was just a big radio band, really.
Right.
Other than the few originals that we were starting to write. So every song we did, everybody loved it because it was already a big hit, you know. So now here I go, walking on stage with all my own music. You know, like, wow, is this going to go over? Is it going to bomb or what, you know? But by the end of every night, the people were rocking. You know, it was a real neat feeling. Scary, but neat.
So one of the things that I'm getting out of this person is I'm listening to you, and it's like outside of that one call where they said doesn't want you in the band, it
Right.
seems to me like you were the guy that they pick up. You had a reputation. You must have been, well networked, if that was a word back then. Just talk about that, because it just seems like you were a guy that people just want to have around.
Yes, I gotta give that band Stitch In Tyme a lot of credit. What a way to start your career! I could have started with some just ordinary band that never got anywhere,
Right.
But here we were. We had every best, amazing gig there was to be had in the Ontario, down east. They flew us one time from. We played a gig somewhere. It was in the wintertime, around Cornwall or something, outside of Montreal. So we had to fly we're supposed to catch a plane at a certain time and go to St. John, New Brunswick, the UNB, and they used to have this winter carnival. And they had like the Everly Brothers, all these big name. They flew the Stitch In Tyme in there, paid us $1,500 for like a show for an hour and a half.
In '66, that's big money.
I know it was. It really was. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, wow. See, we were all on a good salary. Like, we had like a regular life. We all had our own place.
Nice.
Like we started out living in a band house, but we started making money being so popular that I said, I don't want to live in this band house. You guys are a bunch of pigs. It's like living with some guys. Some guys wash the dishes once a week, even if you don't have to. And I want things to be. I want a normal kind of place. So me and Donnie Morris moved out together, and then I said, we got to have a salary. We got to, so we were making crazy money for that far back. We all bought cars and, unheard of, took vacations. Yeah.
That's awesome. What we're going to have to do, we're going to do this in 2 sections, maybe even 3, because what happens is these recordings that we do are timed. So I'm going to run out of time on this particular meeting. We'll take a break, and then what I'll do is we'll send up another invite for another meeting, because there's so much more to talk about. But
because he asked me a question I didn't even answer yet.
So go ahead.
And I used to listen to this all night, Bruce, because I mean, it's just what you're laying down here is just, I've heard about like some of this stuff, but I mean, just to actually hear it is just amazing.
Yeah, there's so many things I have to really sit and think about it, because it was just one amazing thing after another, really, for the Canadian music industry, because it was in its infancy. Radio wasn't supporting Canadian talent hardly at all. Still doesn't really. And we got lucky. I guess we put out a Beatles song. How can you go wrong?
You know what? I want to pick that up on the other side, because I have a question I need to ask you about not supporting Canadian music, and maybe we'll pick it up on the other side, because I'd love to get your opinion on it.
I got a lot of, I don't like to be bearer of bad news, but I mean, it's pretty bad. But
yeah,
that's fair. All right, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Boss tools, band talk,